wasn't always so small and petty. Thousands of years ago, while the rest of men prayed to gods, the Valyrians became them. Through magic or sheer will, they mastered the greatest creatures in history. A horse grants man dominion over the land, a ship over the sea. But dragons gave us the sky, and everything.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Everyone beneath it.
I'm like, babe, you get everything when it comes to the dragon.
The known world. Whatever parts we didn't weren't worth knowing. Our capital of Valyria shamed the magnificent cities of the east. For hammers and chisels were no match for dragon fire and sorcery. It was a city and an empire built to last until the end of time. It didn't. 400 years ago, the doom fell on Valyria. Mountains cracked open like eggs, lakes and rivers boiled, fountains of fire, ash and smoke spewed from the ground, so high and so hot that even dragons burned in flight. The land splintered, and the angry sea rushed in. In hours, the greatest city in history became history. But my ancestors didn't burn or drown with the rest of their race. 12 years before the Doom, despite the sneers of his rivals, Aegon Targaryen abandoned the capital with his family. Legends claim that his daughter foresaw the destruction of the city in a dream. More likely, Aegon met with some mishap at court and chose exile over execution. He and House Targaryen slinked away to a dreary, remote, god-forsaken island. Forsaken no longer. With arts now lost to the world, we transformed a tiny outpost into Dragonstone, a fortress fit for the last dragon lords. Then Aenar's descendants settled into it like a tomb for their lost homeland. Until Aegon. When he looked east, he saw the past, old, tired, dead. But when he looked west, he saw the future. Gold in the ground, gold in the fields, and no dragons in the sky but his. He and his sisters, Rhaenys and Visenya, flew over the great continent.
Oh, she's looking kind of.
ostensibly
I know
visitors
it's animation. All right, let me chill.
But when Aegon returned, he ordered construction of a massive table carved in the shape of Westeros, with all the notable rivers and mountains that they had seen. A personal map of the Seven Kingdoms, then ruled by 7 squabbling families. House Durrandon held the Stormlands from their seat at Storm's End, due south of Dragonstone. House Horror of the Iron Islands had also conquered and enslaved the Riverlands, and ruled them from Harrenhal, a monstrous castle rising on the shore of the God's Eye. House Stark held the frozen wasteland of the north, the oldest, largest, and emptiest of the kingdoms. House Lannister held the Westerlands, the wealthiest kingdom, thanks to their gold mines. House Gardner held the Reach, the second wealthiest kingdom, thanks to their crops. House Arryn held the Vale, or rather the Vale held them. The mountains were impassable, except through the Bloody Gate, which had never been taken. House Martell held the deserts of Dorne, probably because no one else wanted them. Together, the 7 kingdoms made Westeros, a realm that wasn't yet a realm, ruled by great families who didn't know what greatness was. Aegon would teach them.
Though House Durrandon,
Damn, they said you get 3 seconds. Not even they said you get 2 seconds, man.
their kingdom in the Stormlands had been doddering to its end for the past few centuries, helped along by other houses, most of all by House Horror, who were nearly.
Hey, when it comes to this, I don't gotta turn it off when it comes to this score.
Too large and too costly a seat to rule only the Riverlands. King Argilac knew where the Ironborn would soon turn. You'd think a king who wanted to keep his crown would be wary of a man with fire-breathing monsters. But King Argilac turned and wasn't called the Arrogant for nothing.
What kind of name is that, Argilac? Ew.
His decline, he sent an envoy to Dragonstone to enlist Aegon Targaryen and his dragons against his enemies. In exchange, Argalek offered lands he didn't have and a wife Aegon didn't need. For as the Valyrians did, Aegon had wed his elder sister, Visenya. Then, as the Valyrians didn't, he took the younger Rhaenys as well. 2 sisters, 2 wives. Perhaps that's why he was so keen to get off Dragonstone. Aegon countered Argalak with courtesy. He sent his own envoy requesting that Princess Durrandon's hand be given instead to Aegon's closest friend and rumored half-brother, Orys Baratheon. Argalak answered with a box and a note. These are the only hands your bastard shall have of me. Inside the box were the hands of Aegon's envoy. How long had Aegon been waiting for such a pretext? As his army prepared to sail, ravens flew to every great lord of the 7 kingdoms. All bore the same message. From this day forth, there would be but one king in Westeros. Those who bent the knee to Aegon of House Targaryen would keep their lands and titles. Those who took up arms against him would be thrown down, humbled, and destroyed. Poor old Argalak. He couldn't even match Aegon in arrogance. Aegon landed at the mouth of the Blackwater River and raised a primitive Aegon fort in the disputed land between Harren's and Argalak's kingdom, so that neither could decide whose problem he was. Adopting the customs of the 7 kingdoms, Aegon unfurled his own banner with a red 3-headed dragon breathing fire upon a black field. Visenya crowned him with a ruby-studded circlet of Valyrian steel, while Rhaenys hailed him as the first High King the continent had seen since the Dawn Age. As his lords and the gathered locals cheered him, Aegon named his loyal friend to a small council, led by Orys Baratheon, whom he called my strong right hand. The title stuck, and a bastard became the first Hand of the King.
Wow.
But for now, Aegon's kingdom contained only a rocky island and a handful of fields. The other
That's crazy how it started and ended with them.
Castles and thousands of years of rule. But Aegon had dragons. He had chosen for the words of his house, fire and blood. Before he was done, the rivers, fields, and skies would turn red.
Hello? Yeah, this one going.
Harren of House Horror inherited a kingdom that stretched from the Iron Islands to the Triton. Too great a kingdom to rule from a castle as shit as pike. For 40 years, his Ironborn plundered the riverlands for stone, timber, and slaves to build a seat worthy of him. Legend has it that Masons laid the final stone in Harrenhal on the very day that Aegon landed in Westeros. Could have been a divine omen. Could have been the Masons wanted to fuck off before the dragons got there. They weren't the only ones. At Aegon's approach, Harren's river lords revolted, led by House Tully. I thought Harren noticed. Harrenhal could repel an army of 1,000,000 men. No ladder could summit its walls, and no ram could shatter them. The castle was as impregnable as an old mate's cunt. Harren shut his gates around himself, his sons and his Ironborn, and waited for Aegon's army to drain back into the muck. When Aegon finally saw the monstrous castle, he asked for parley. Harren granted it. Valyria had been the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Harren wanted to piss on its ashes.
Yield now, and you may remain as Lord of the Iron Islands. Yield now, and your sons will live to rule after you. You see my army outside your walls. You see my dragons.
What is outside my walls is of no concern. Those walls are strong and thick.
Dragons fly.
But stone doesn't burn.
When the sun sets, your line shall end.
Harren spat and returned to his castle.
I for sure have not seen your banner.
He promised lands, riches, and Tully's daughters to whoever could bring down Aegon or his dragon. As the sun sank below the horizon, all of Harren's men patrolled the battlements, hearing wings in every gust of wind. But the moon rose and sank, and no dragon appeared.
While the Ironborn were ringing the battlements, Aegon drove his dragon Balerion higher and higher in the night sky, so that even the great castle of Harrenhal looked like an anthill below them. Then they plunged straight into the castle, well inside the guarded walls. The 5 towers of Harrenhal reached towards Aegon like a hand. Balerion opened his mouth and bathed all the fingers in flame.
Harren was right. Stone doesn't burn, but
Well,
men
people,
do,
yep.
even when they're Ironborn. The dragon blasted my ancestors into ash that choked.
Yeah, hold on now. Stone don't burn. All I'm gonna just say is the bells. They sure do fucking explode though.
The survivors when they scream.
I don't even want to talk about that right now, dude.
Battlements and died. They huddled against the walls and died. They fled across the yard and died. Harren and his sons took shelter inside the castle. The stone didn't burn, but as Balerion blasted it with fire, it glowed white hot. The world's greatest castle became the world's greatest oven, baking the last of House Aura within it.
Outside the castle walls, the towers of Harrenhal glowed red against the night, and began to twist and melt like 5 huge candles, with liquid stone trickling down their sides like wax. The next morning, Aegon forged a new Riverlands. He named the rebel Edmund Tully as his Lord Paramount of the Trident, and had the other river lords swear him fealty as their new liege. For centuries, House Aura had terrorized the Riverlands. Under House Tully, the Riverlands would at last return to peace and prosperity. After the castle cooled enough to allow men inside, Aegon ventured into the ruin he'd made of Harrenhal. He saw the ashen bodies, the scorched stone, and the mangled and melted swords of his former enemies. To his men's confusion, he ordered these useless swords collected and sent to his Aegon fort.
That's a fire concept, dude.
After his coronation, Oris Baratheon had taken
Can't wait to see that shit close up at House of the Dragon.
Rhaenys with her dragon south to deal with the exclusion.
Now hold on, because I did hear when it came to the throne, like, there was like, oh, it's 1,000 swords, and what's his name? Baelish is like, it's 200. I counted it myself. But you go to the House of the Dragon teaser or trailer, whichever one they just dropped. Well, not just dropped, but they dropped it maybe like a couple of days ago when I'm recording this. This is May 9th, and you see the actual throne that you see in the actual show, maybe a little bit more on it, and then you just see, like, basically, if I'm sitting here and this is the throne, you just see, like, next to me and behind me, like, and then on both sides you see a whole bunch of other swords. So is that something where that was something I was taken out later, or that was just like, because I heard that was a difference from book to show. In the book, it actually was 1,000 swords. In the show, they toned it down. And then when we get to the House of the Dragon, you see that which could actually look like 1,000 swords.
Argilac the Arrogant, king of the Stormlands. Argilac had his seat at Storm's End, a castle considered the most impregnable in Westeros after Harrenhal. Argilac may have been arrogant, but he wasn't stupid or a coward. His lords advised him to shut his gates and wait out the siege. But he'd heard what had happened at Harrenhal, and refused to die a suckling pig cooked in his own castle. He would meet victory or defeat the same way, with sword in hand. He called his banners and marched to meet Oris Baratheon in the field. Thanks to Rhaenyra's dragon, Meraxes, Oris knew Argilac was coming, how many men he had, and how fast he marched. So Oris simply seized the high ground and dug in on the hills to wait for Argilac. As the two armies approached, the wind rose to meet them and the rain poured from the sky. a gale which would give the battle its name, the Last Storm. King Argilac's lords urged him to wait for the weather to die down. But a Storm King saw that the rain was blowing into the faces of the Baratheon men on their hills. And Argilac outnumbered the Baratheon host 2 to 1, with 4 times as many knights and heavy horse. Argilac attacked. 3 times Argilac led his knights against the Baratheon line, but the hills were steep and the rain had beat the earth to mud. The war horses foundered and slipped, and the chargers collapsed. The battle seemed lost, until Argilac ordered his spearmen up the hill. Blinded by the rain, the Baratheons didn't see them until it was too late. One hill fell, then another, and another, until only one remained in the Baratheon center. If Argilac could break through there, he could split the invading army and flank both halves. Argilac and his men charged, and the Baratheon line broke, revealing Queen Rhaenys and Meraxes. Argilac's vanguard burst into flame and his men panicked. The victory charge fell into chaos, and Argilac himself was thrown from his horse. But he didn't yield. When Orys Baratheon arrived, he found the old king holding off half a dozen men, another half dozen dead at his feet. Orys dismounted to meet the king on equal footing, and offered Argilac one final chance to yield. Argilac cursed him instead. As the storm raged around them, the grizzled old warrior and the bearded upstart fought for life and kingdom. In the end, Argilac got his wish. He died,
sword in hand. Yep.
As word of Argilac's death spread, his lords and knights threw down their swords and fled. Orys and his vanguard rode to Storm's End to claim Argilac's castle for Aegon, only to find the gates barred and the walls manned. Argilac's daughter had assumed his crown, and the new Storm Queen was as fond of yielding as her father. She declared that Orys would win only bones, blood, and ashes here. But her men were weaker than her, and that night Orys found Argilac's daughter delivered, gagged, chained, and naked to his camp. Argilac had refused to give Orys her hand. Now Orys could have any part of her he wished. But Orys unchained the girl, wrapped his cloak around her, and poured her a glass of wine. He told her he would take the arms, banner, and words of House Durrandon to honor her father's courage in the last storm. Conveniently, Orys had none of his own to discard first. The crowned stag became the sigil of House Baratheon, and Storm's End their seat. Argilac's daughter would even remain in her home, though as a lady instead of a princess. The Stormlands were now Aegon's, and as tribute, Aegon demanded the swords of the men Orys had defeated. For what purpose? Orys didn't know.
I was about to say, I'm like, you really, like, I was about to say you really can't, like, come up with your own, like, banner and stuff like that. But I guess to, you know, tribute. Hold on, wait. Is this the first time that they had Jaime on these? Or am I tripping? I know I heard when it came to, you know, bigger characters, I heard Catelyn. Did I hear Jon Snow on one? If he was on one, he wasn't on here like on a full, like for multiple seasons. It was probably one season and a couple slides. I think they had Robb Stark. They might have had Jon season 1. I don't know. I know they had Ygritte. But Jaime, he's a big player, bro. Like, besides like Cat, like Varys and Littlefinger, y'all cool, but I don't consider y'all big players.
Now ruled 2 of the 7 kingdoms. Aegon now ruled 2 of the 7 kingdoms, but he would no longer be able to take the rest piecemeal. For the first time in thousands of years, the kings put aside their squabbles and joined forces against a common enemy. My ancestor, King Loren of House Lannister, was head of the wealthiest family in the Seven Kingdoms. When King Loren joined his forces to Mern of House Gardner, king of the Reach, they had the mightiest army in history, a so-called Iron Fist, to break the would-be conqueror. But while an Iron Fist can smash a man's face in battle, you'd look silly hunting birds or beasts with it. And Aegon had a creature that was both. The kings had never even seen a dragon, let alone fought one. They had fought each other for thousands of years, and victory always went to the larger army. Surely, a force 5 times that of Aegon's could manage one dragon. But Aegon arrived with 3. Still, the Lannisters and Gardeners hoped for victory. The battlefield they chose was a wide plain with firm ground and clear skies, perfect for archers and mounted cavalry.
Oh, this
The king spared a thought for why.
I don't even remember what it's called, I'm not even gonna lie.
There had been no rain for a fortnight, which meant all the wheat and grass on it were bone dry. Perfect for dragons.
It's been a minute.
First, the kings looked like they would emerge victorious. When the horn blew for
That
battle,
sounded
the
so
army
weird,
swept around
dude.
Aegon's flanks, and their iron fist of mounted knights smashed through his center before the dragons could even enter the fray. But then, Aegon and his sisters took flight and unleashed their dragons not on the soldiers, but on the dry fields all around them. The iron fist unclenched and became a hand outstretched for mercy. As Aegon promised, he had none. More than 4,000 men died in the fires, another 1,000 escaping them. Tens of thousands returned home as monsters, burned and scarred beyond recognition. House Gardner never returned at all. The Field of Fire, as the singers call it,
Oh,
claimed
Field
the
of Fire,
last
okay,
Garden
bet.
line, and House Tyrell rose in their stead as Lords of the Reach and Wardens of the South. As for my illustrious ancestor, when King Lawrence
That was a fire fucking transition.
Flame and smoke to safety, or at least
That would have been cool to
a
actually
rolling
see, like,
couch
live
later,
action.
where he laid his sword before Aegon and knelt. Aegon, true to his word, spared him and confirmed House Lannister as Lords of Casterly Rock and Wardens of the West. Why wouldn't he? A Lannister always pays his debts, and now we owed our lives to the crown. That was worth centuries of subservience at least. Besides, Aegon had a fetish for collecting swords, not heads. He added Lawrence to the pile his men had retrieved from the Field of Fire and sent them back to the Aegon Fort.
Very last slide is gonna be the construction of the throne, the Iron Throne.